I'll start the recording right now. This presentation will be recorded. We'll make the presentation available along with the slides to anyone who has registered. So even if someone is registered and wasn't able to actually make the presentation, they'll be able to access the recording, which hopefully will be useful. Now, I'm going to say that also, in addition to being recorded, I'm going to stop the recording before the question and answer. So any questions at the end that might be personal in nature, those will not be recorded. So, but otherwise the presentation itself will be. So any chat or questions you ask during the presentations, they may be recorded. So keep that in mind. As to the questions during the presentation, I'll leave it to Stephen to tell us if you'd like audio interruptions or chat interruptions. I'll try to monitor the chat box as best I can during the presentation. And aside from that, thank you for coming. This is the last parent presentation for this school year. So we're taking the summer off presentations, but you all are registered and you'll be notified of ones beginning up in the fall again. We do have the YouTube channel, which we have, I don't think it's dozens of presentations already. So if you get lonely and you want to see our faces, you can go there and see those. So without delay, I present to you Stephen Franze, and who's going to tell us all about confidence and how to instill this in our children. Stephen, and make sure to make clear how you'd like comments or questions taken care of along the way. Okay?
Absolutely.
Good luck.
Thanks so much, Mark. Hi, everybody. Yeah. So I'm Stephen Franze. I am the sport and performance psychologist at Sasko River. And yeah, so we're going to be discussing confidence today. One of the first things that you might notice is that we talk about a lot of things besides confidence. I think when it comes to youth sports and when it comes to kids, we really hope that there's going to be this solution to confidence. It has to do with sitting our kids down, giving them a big pep talk on how to deal with these things, but it's far more complicated than that. We're going to be going into discussions about, the environment in which they learn, the roles that you as parents can be taking, as well as coaches. I talk about coaching quite a bit only because I think it's one of the major considerations when you are signing your kid up for youth sports participation. There's a lot of different styles of coaching out there, and I think knowing which one fits your kid and your athlete best is going to be really important for that. Besides that, when it comes to comments and questions during the presentation, I would definitely encourage you to put it into the chat. I can't promise I will stop in the moment, but I'm going to leave a pretty significant portion of the time at the end for questions, because I think this is a very personal journey as for both the athlete and you as their parent. And there's going to be things that come up and there might be more specific questions that you're going to want to ask. So again, I'm going to leave, I'll leave at least 15 minutes at the end for questions, and I highly encourage you to bring those. As Mark mentioned, if they're more personal in nature, and this is something that you would rather discuss, when we stop the recording, or just something you'd rather bring to me personally, my contact information will be available and you can always come to me. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can get the presentation going. All right, so confidence, the cornerstone of childhood success. So obviously when it comes to something like confidence, it's a big loaded term. But I think when we're talking about confidence, we're just talking about our kid feeling comfortable going out and doing their best at whatever it is that they're going to do. They don't, we don't get in the car and we shy away from going to our sport, going to our activity, but we are willing to face it head on, no matter the challenge. So we're going to go over again. It's going to be a few categories today. But again, it's all in relationship with confidence. So just kind of the current state of youth sports. Obviously, I'll give my background first, but we're just going to go over kind of my observations from, the landscape of youth sports now, how confidence is related to youth sports, and also the ways in which confidence can be learned through youth sport participation. And then the final category, the next three categories are all about how we can, areas that we can improve in order to encourage and help facilitate confidence. So what is their learning environment? This is their practice setting. This is their game setting, and the ways, that we can improve that. The role of the coach in helping to facilitate confidence. The role of parents. That I think is something that doesn't get discussed enough, is how to be a good youth sport parent and what you can be doing to help facilitate confidence in your player through their youth sport participation. and as well as the future of youth sports. So some of the initiatives that I see on the horizon that are starting to gain some traction, and also just personally where I'd like to see things go. But before that, just to give you my background. So I grew up in New Canaan, Connecticut. That's still where I reside. And I played competitive ice hockey for up through college. So for anyone familiar, we have a program around here called Mid Fairfield. This is a program that is nationally ranked at the youth level at all of their birth years, typically in the top 10. I did this from about the age of 6 up through the age of 14. I'd go on to play in high school for both New Canaan High School as well as Trinity Catholic and the King School. My journey took several twists and turns, mostly due to some of the issues that I'll discuss throughout this presentation. Once I got out of high school, I did end up playing in college, but I played at the club level. This was at the University of Vermont. I'd go on to captain that team. And for myself, the biggest reason I got into this field is I completely burned out of this sport. And that's actually, while we're talking about confidence, I think to talk about confidence, to talk about how to avoid some of the pitfalls that I experienced and that I'm still seeing in youth sports. So essentially I had this deep love of the game. And by the time I got to high school, going to practice was a chore. I didn't really have an interest in the competition level anymore. I had absolutely zero confidence in my own ability. So if you could imagine a youth athlete that played at the highest possible level, that did not think he was any good, that did not think it was possible to take this sport to any kind of high level. And I think the biggest reason for me to get into this field was to help kids avoid these types of pitfalls and to have a far more successful and far more enjoyable experience than I was able to have. Youth sports participation. So we've seen a dramatic rise in youth sports participation. At this point, I would say it's implied, especially in this area, that your child is participating in some type of sport. For some, it is several different sports. For some, it is a single sport. You have some athletes that are participating in 4 to 5 very high level sports. And you might have athletes that are in a single sport and it is more at the recreational level. In any of these cases, the goals are the same. And I'm going to say that again. Regardless of how many sports or at what level your child is participating, the goals need to always be the same. And I think that's something that gets lost. One thing that is a bit problematic that we'll get into quite a bit is the increase in specialization, especially at a young age. So basically all that means is instead of seeing, a child play, multiple sports throughout the year, including multiple activities, you're basically seeing kids hone in on a single sport as young as 8, 9, 10 years old. And the thinking is that there is such a demand for how, the expectations that we're putting on these athletes and how good we expect them to be, that there's no time for other sports. We have to focus. If I'm not focused on my one sport throughout the year and every week I'm not participating in my sport 3 to 4 to 5 days a week, well, then my child's going to fall behind and they're not going to go and play in Division I and they're not going to get the scholarships that I want them to get. And there are a whole host of problems that go into increased specialization that we'll get into more as we go along. But probably the most problematic thing that we see is decreased longevity in the participation of youth sports. And this isn't just because we've seen an increase in the participation of youth sports. By population, we are seeing kids leave youth sports in drones at a much younger age. Most kids not even making it to high school at this point. And that has to do with a lot of the issues that we're going to discuss. But I think if you are a coach, if you're a parent, if you are just anybody that wants your kid to get the most out of their sport, one of the litmus tests that we need to be following is, do they continue to play? Especially once they have a choice, such as when they become teenagers. And right now it's no. More kids are choosing to leave their sport than to stay in it. And when we look at the fact that sports are a game and that kids are choosing not to play a game anymore, something that they really did enjoy, well, then we know that we have to go back and kind of start to find some solutions. So what is youth sports? I like to talk about the fact that I think youth sports have been hijacked. And what that means is, if we just imagine that we have an open field and maybe we put a couple of nets there and a ball. Kids will organize themselves, right? If you let kids kind of organize their own game, one of the first things that you'll hear if you listen in is that's not fair or this isn't fair. Kids are really good at organizing themselves. There might be some disagreements and some arguments, but kids in general know how to handle these moments, and they certainly know how to put fair teams together. But basically, as adults, what we did is we came in and we took the kids and we're like, oh, look, they're playing a game. Oh, look at a couple of these kids are really good. If we have 20 kids, these 10 are good. So, what if we took these 10 and we pulled them aside and we're going to form a team, and then we'll take these 10 and they're not as good. So yeah, we'll put them over here. And then we're going to take these really good 10 kids and we see that the town over, well, they have 10 really good players. All right, well, what if we made them start playing each other? Oh, well, what now if we took the 10 best kids in the county and then we found this other county? And basically the kids never wanted this. The 20 kids that we started with were just fine. They were having fun. The games were fair and they were enjoying their sports. And it's been the adults' introduction into the youth experience that has taken it and focused it more on high level competition, being the best, really isolating and creating these tiers in which, maybe I have a friend who's not good at my sport, but I want to be playing with them. Doesn't matter. We're not going to be on the same team. And every year it's this striving to be on the best team or to play at the highest level I can, not because that matters to me, the youth athlete, but I've been told that's what's important in this process. What is important is that I make these really good high level, quote, elite teams. Parent goals. I think parents have very pure goals going into this process, and it is for all the right reasons. I want my kid to gain some social skills. I want my kid to learn how to deal with adversity. I want them to learn how to compete and how to battle. I want them to learn, and ultimately it can really help them when they get to college. It can get them scholarships and all these other things. And so I think generally the goals are good. What you'll find is that often they differ from the player goals. If you ask a player, a youth athlete, what is your goal? I'm not sure you'll get a true answer for them. And I think that goes for any type of game or activity that they participate in. If we break out a game of, let's say, Clue, I don't know, I've been playing that game a lot recently. It's been enjoyable. But if you break out a game of Clue and say, what's the goal? Okay, well, I want to win the game. Okay, but what are we getting out of playing Clue? Well, you could say I'm learning how to ask proper questions. I can learn critical thinking skills and all these great things. Your kid's not going to come up with that. It's just simply not important to them. That's the beauty of youth sports. They are accidentally, in the right environment and given the right messaging, they're accidentally learning phenomenal skills and phenomenal life lessons. When it comes to confidence, I seldomly will talk to the kids about confidence, but we're constantly trying to develop it. And we're constantly trying to reinforce it with any group that I'm a part of and with any parents that I work with. We do not have to tell them that we want them to be confident. We don't need to tell them that the goal for them is to be confident, especially given that that's just very abstract in its understanding. We'll talk a little bit more about it as we go along, but understanding that kids, their goals in this are very simple, and it is to enjoy themselves. And I want to go back to the parent goals and to say that needs to start being the primary goal as well. If I want my kid to remain in sports and if I want them to take the lessons out of it that I want them to, then having fun needs to be the goal. And that's become a bit of a dirty word in sports. Fun, well, where's the competition? Where's the seriousness? And how are they going to learn how to, and that's a lot of what we'll talk about, is how to blend having fun and how, and the success in their sport, and how that all is going to tie into their confidence levels. And at the end of the day, I think youth sports has become a business. When I hear about recruiting, I even with my own teams that I coach, oh, we got to go out. We got to get some new players for our team next year so we can be better. Recruit for kids. There's contracts. I have to write release letters every year for 8-year-olds, for 9-year-olds, so that they can go play somewhere else. Once again, I have to write a release letter for a 9-year-old to go play on another team. And that to me foundationally speaks to what is wrong with how the organizations are handling these sports teams and these youth teams, how it applies undue pressure onto the parent that trickles down to the child. Again, the more pressure that we can start to take out of these youth sports and better refine the goals of participation, the more confidence the kids will have and the more that they're going to get out of the experience. And a lot of this, based on the little anecdote from earlier, starts with the death of free play. I just think youth sports in general are far too structured, that kids need to have some agency and some ownership over the process. And that ties into free play. And basically you see it on their day-to-day basis. They wake up, mom and dad, we got to get out the door, we got to make the school bus, or we got to get in the car. Here's your lunch. You got to make sure you shower. You got to get dressed. Why are you wearing that? You can't leave the house like that. Go brush your hair. Did you remember to brush your teeth? That's the first 45 minutes of their day. And after that, they're at school and they're told to sit down. Make sure you raise your hand. If you want to go to the bathroom, you have to ask if you want to go to the bathroom. Now you have to do this and you're going off to this class. Kids are constantly being told what to do and how to behave throughout the day. There's very little time during their school day where they're actually given the ability to just do whatever it is that they want to do, to work within a group in a very loose setting. That's why it's pretty much exactly why when you ask kids, what's your favorite thing at school? It's funny, but we all know what the kid's going to say. It's going to be recess. It's going to be lunch. It's going to be gym. It's going to be, any other loose activity that they're permitted throughout the day is always their favorite activity of the day. They might have a favorite class. And if you ask why, 9 times out of 10, it's the teacher, right? That's why we're going to talk about coaches. Very rarely do kids pick up on, this is my favorite course study. Like, I'm really good at math, so I like math the most. They know what they're best at. They know what they struggle with. That often does not relate to what they enjoy throughout the school day. And so basically, once they get done with school, they get to their sport. This is supposed to be, again, it's supposed to be a game. But again, they show up at their practice. Here's your drill, stand in line. Why are you doing this? You need to be, you need to be doing it this way. Here's what you're doing wrong. Guys, be quiet, sit down, take a knee. Again, it's this over instruction. And what we know from free play is it is a tremendous tool for just about anything you can imagine. Peer and social interactions. Developing their social skills, developing their negotiation skills, how conflict resolution. If an argument arises, you'll see the kids diffuse the situation. You'll see other kids step in and try to help diffuse the situation. You see them make their own rules. You see them make their own guidelines. And all of this is very important for what they get out of the youth experience. Not to mention that that free play also is incredibly important for their sport development. So if you want your child to be the best athlete that they can be, free play is irreplaceable. They learn far more in free play than they have in any practice that I could possibly run. And I think, if anybody has any knowledge about hockey, sometimes we look at Canada, like, oh my gosh, Canadians, why are they so great at hockey? Well, they're fortunate. It's quite cold up there. They have a lot of frozen ponds, rivers, and lakes. And what you'll see is all these kids going out and playing on their own. There is a huge deficit in children just going out with their friends and with each other and participating in their sport. And we need to start to see a resurgence of free play, not just in their sport. I think this is something academically that could be added as well. The other thing that we're seeing, and this relates to what I was talking about earlier with early specialization, is a rise in overuse injuries. So if you talk to orthopedic surgeons, what they'll say is that they have a rise in overuse injuries in youth sports. So what that means is essentially youth athletes are training too much and too specifically. I'll just tell a quick aside. So I had an athlete I was working with. He was 9 years old at the time, and he was a hockey player, and he came to me. We were actually doing some dryland training, and he talked to me about his hips hurting. And I just jokingly made a comment like, oh, gosh, my goodness, what are you, an old man? Your hips are already hurting? Just thinking, okay, he's sore. And he goes, oh, yeah, my hips hurt every day. And I stopped, and I just, from what I know, I go, okay, this child's probably skating too much. They're probably on the ice too much. I asked him about his other sports. He used to be a snowboarder, and he used to play lacrosse, but those had pretty much gone away because he made this incredibly high level team and the focus was only on hockey. So we're playing hockey 365 days a year. with no other sport participation. 1 year later, I see him with crutches, and he tore his hip. He tore a muscle in his hip. Again, tore a muscle in his hip at 10 years old. A 10-year-old is not supposed to be tearing muscles, but essentially you have a child that's only strengthening a particular set of muscles and is not training any other, muscles through other sport participation. That's what leads to that injury. And this was something I warned the parent about prior, when I first heard about, first complained about the pain in his hips. So again, it's not just that early specialization is going to be bad for their enjoyment of the sport. It will cause them to get injured. And I have about 24 other stories, not just in my coaching experience, but as a counselor. And I'll tell you that those injuries through over specialization at a young age, that will lead to burnout. That will lead to them abandoning the sport because it hurts their confidence. If my kid is always getting hurt and always getting injured and not able to participate in their sport, and I'm always emphasizing that participating all year round is the only way that they can play at a high level, that's going to hurt their confidence. And these injuries do become chronic. You see it time and time again. Yeah, they'll miss time, they're falling behind, they have less security in the fact that they're going to make their team next year, and now they don't get to play with their friends anymore. And just overall, it just leads to less enjoyment. So how does this relate to confidence? Confidence is a cornerstone. So confidence is the desired outcome. I think when you ask people why they want their kid to participate in youth sports, most people know the right answer. And the biggest part is usually confidence. It's confidence in their social skills. It's confidence in facing a challenge. It's confidence in overcoming adversity. And it's confidence in trying new things. However, I think while we all say that, you don't necessarily see the way that we treat this process match those goals, but we'll get into that. But how is it fostered? Well, it's supposed to be that if we've ever seen youth sports, I mean, these kids are incredibly talented. I'm glad that I coach because I've never felt so bad at ice hockey as I do watching these young athletes play. The expectations for, let's say, a 9-year-old athlete is about 4 years advanced from what we used to expect, meaning what I expect out of a 9-year-old is what we used to expect out of a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old. I mean, the bar is just so incredibly high. And to their credit, they can. They're capable of it. Our tools for training and our approach to training has become very sophisticated, and we do have the resources to help make that possible. However, is that the bar, or is that an aspiration, and how do we help them reach that? And the biggest part of this is, and honestly, the biggest challenge is that confidence begets confidence. I have parents all the time talk about, my athlete wanting more confidence in their athlete and wanting their athlete to be able to be more confident in their sport. And the challenge is that your athlete has to be confident before they can actually gain confidence. And what that means is, if I don't feel secure going out and making mistakes, if I don't feel that I have the support of my coach or my parent or my teammates, I will never be confident. It's not possible. Or I'll have very shaky or very flimsy confidence. My confidence will rest on an unstable foundation. So if we imagine that an athlete that has, let's call it unstable confidence, when they enter competition, at the first sight of failure or adversity, you're going to see that confidence diminish because they don't have a belief in themselves, right? So all of a sudden I go in, I'm hoping things will go well, but I don't know. And you know what? Oh, maybe in this game, I score a goal in the first 5 minutes. So for that game, I'm super confident in myself because things are going well. But what if I don't, what I'm not doing very well? Maybe I have a few turnovers. Maybe I make a few big mistakes. I will not have confidence that game because I'm waiting to see how the game is going to go. I don't trust that I'm going to do well. I don't have the confidence that I'm going to do well. So I'm going to wait to see how things go. If you really want your kid to be confident, or if you want to know if your player is confident, see how they look before the game. See what do they expect to happen. And if the expectation is anything other than I'm going to be successful, or this is going to go well, or I believe in my teammates or myself, they don't have the proper type of confidence. And why they don't is a very nuanced issue, which is why I want to leave time at the end for questions. Because the question is, why is my kid not confident? Is if there was a simple answer, or someone could develop a simple answer, that person would be a multimillionaire, because that is the question that I get asked all the time. And if you want to know what lack of confidence might look like, if you're not sure, if you think your kid might be confident, but it's not reflecting in their play, a lot of times we can imagine if it's whether it's soccer, whether it's hockey, whether it's lacrosse or football, or if there's a situation in which the ball or the puck or whatever it is loose or up for grabs, does my player go and try to get it? Or if the other team has possession, does my player try to take it away, try to get possession for their team? Because the number one question I get is, how do I get my player to be more aggressive, to go take possession back, or to go gain possession? That is confidence. If my athlete's not confident that they can be successful, that they are able to go, get possession for their team, that they're able to have control of the ball or the puck and make a good play that their team and the coach and their parents will be happy with, if they don't have that confidence, they're not going to do it. So most of the problems that parents are looking at in terms of their athlete being, really impactful in competition or in their games, it's usually due to their confidence. But again, we already talked about free play, but loss of agency. Do kids get any kind of say in their sport anymore? Generally, coaches know best, parents know best. No, this is what we're going to do. Coach, can we scrimmage today? No, we have drills that we need to do today, right? Coach, can I play defense? No, I have you on offense. And we don't really give them an opportunity to voice their opinions. This is something that I've started to change a lot. I'll never make an athlete play a certain position if they don't want to, because at that point I have to figure out, well, why don't they want to? Well, they might not have the confidence. How do I get them the confidence to want to play this role for me? But also giving them a say in the practices. There's a lot of times now, and I've just learned that if I come in with a practice plan and I have 2, 3, 4 athletes come up to me and they're like, can we do this day? Or can we play this game? Can we do this drill? I've just started to go, yeah. And I'll take my practice plan, I'll crumble it up and I'll throw it away. Why? Because they're going to work really hard in those drills. They're going to work really hard in those games that we're giving them because they're requesting them. I get into this in coaching, but it's not up to me to give the drills because this is the best drill and this is how you're going to get better. It's up to me to give them a drill that they're going to really like because they're going to work hard. And I can teach things through that drill or through any drill that I want to accomplish. It's just not about it being my way. It has to be their way to an extent. And then misguided goal setting. So again, I think we are on the same page of what is important in youth sports, right? If I say, it's really important in youth sports that we learn how to interact with our peers, that we learn how to, be a good teammate, that we learn how to be a good person and a good citizen. We all agree with that. But are we reflecting that to them? Are we actually demonstrating to them that that is what's important for us? And I think oftentimes we're not, and we'll get into that as we're going along. But what does confidence look like? Making mistakes. And not only making mistakes, but not seeing a strong emotional response. I can't tell you how many 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds are crying when they were in, their team let up a goal while they continue to be winning the game. I mean, I can have a 5-2 game that we're winning, we let up a goal, and my kids coming off the ice are crying. We're still winning by 2 goals, but that was the worst thing that could have happened. Well, that's a kid that's afraid of making mistakes. That's someone that thinks that there's going to be some sort of punishment or retribution for the fact that they may have done something wrong. As opposed to focusing on, well, what can we have just learned from that moment? Peer interactions. Do they feel comfortable communicating with their teammates? A lot of the peer interactions are really poor. If you've ever, been a parent volunteer or listen to how kids talk to each other, especially in more competitive youth sports, it's often very poor, and that's a sign of bad confidence. I am going to be more critical of my teammate if I'm not confident in the way that I'm performing, because I'm not performing well, so now my team's losing. We'll look at what you're doing wrong, and this is why we're losing. I want to basically become blameless in the process. right? So that goes to the next part, ownership. A confident player takes ownership of their actions. When I know I've been done a good job with a group or with an athlete, they'll come off the ice after a mistake. And if they can tell me what the mistake was, and even better, oh my goodness, if I can follow it up and they can tell me how to fix it or how to adjust it, that is confidence. Confidence is an athlete saying, I made this mistake. If your athlete is not only not able to tell you what the mistake was, but doesn't want to say that they did, that's a lack of confidence. It's an athlete afraid to make a mistake, because in their minds, the worst thing they could do is make a mistake. And then that is something that desperately needs to change in these sports. And then again, you get these emotional reactions. Sports are a game, and what we call competition, these games are a literal game. It really breaks my heart when I see athletes crying over mistakes or crying because they think they may have done something wrong, when this is supposed to be the best part of their day or the best part of their weekend. It's supposed to be these games. This should just be the most amount of fun. Mistakes, don't worry about it. You're with your friends, you have your parents cheering you on, and you are doing the thing that you love. If I have kids that are crying, if we have kids that are crying about a mistake or about a loss, we really have to reconsider, are we doing a good job fostering confidence, and are we doing a good job fostering an enjoyment of this sport? So how do we do that? Once again, agency, free play, I think it's all great. So goal setting is something that I don't think gets looked at enough. There's a big difference, and we're going to go over it a lot more in a while, but I'm going to introduce mastery versus performance goals. We don't realize it, but most of the goals that we have for kids are performance goals, meaning this is how good you should be playing, right? So when we go in, make sure we're fighting for everything, and we're try to get some goals today, or you're going to make some passes. And what we fail to do is, well, what goals should my child be working on that day? Maybe my child's been having a really hard time staying focused in the competition. So that's our goal for the day. Hey, let's just make sure that whenever we get distracted, that we try to make sure we find our way back to the competition, that we're listening to our coach. There's a lot of things kids can and cannot control. And we often focus them on things that they're not able to control. And those are performance goals. So I can't control if my team wins or loses. In fact, an entire team can't control if they win or lose. Sometimes it comes down to a bounce, might come down to a bad call. Like that, it's not something that we can necessarily control. I can't control if I score. I can't control if every pass that I make is perfect or every play that I make is perfect. None of that is really a good thing to have them focus on, because despite their best efforts, they might fail. So I always like to focus athletes on, well, and you can ask them these questions. Oftentimes I tell parents, well, just ask them, and you'll be very surprised by kids' answers. They know the answers to this thing. Like, well, can I control if I stay focused? Can I control my effort level? Can I control if I'm a good teammate? That's it. 3 things. Those are things they can control, and they know it. They know that they can't control whether or not every other thing about their performance is perfect. Because if you ask them, they can give you these answers. They know that those are things that are hard to control, but because there is such an emphasis, they are beating themselves up when things don't go perfectly, when things don't go well. Because again, we're not teaching them how to make mistakes confidently or how to learn properly. We're teaching them to perform, and that's a very dangerous road to go down. So really, if we want confidence, it's about creating the proper learning environment. So again, the importance of free play, if you can't tell, that's just going to keep coming up over and over. I feel very, very strongly about free play, as does the research, and the benefits of having free play. So you're just going to keep seeing this word come up. I think we've covered it to an extent that I'm comfortable with. But again, that is an amazing environment that cannot be replicated in a team setting or in an organized setting. Please, if you take one thing out of today, make sure you set up times for your child to have free play in their sport or in their activity. It will really improve their enjoyment of it. It will really improve their performance of it, and just overall, it is the cornerstone. If you want to talk about the cornerstone of confidence, it is in free play. That is where they get to experiment. If we see these athletes as little scientists, which they often are, this is where they get to try fun things. I'm not there because obviously I have to focus them on certain tasks as a coach. And you as parents want to focus them on particular goals. This is really the only time where they get to focus on what they want to focus on. And it really is an important time. I think it's also back to them being, basically athletes being little scientists. I'll talk about it in coaching. We are all working far too hard as adults to try to teach this stuff. And we'd be much better off and we'd all be much more relaxed ourselves if we started to understand that it is about the kids figuring it out for themselves, not about them being told. I don't think I need to tell you all as parents that kids do not learn well from being told. They do well, they learn from watching and doing. And that is what they learn in free play in spades. It is nothing but opportunities to observe their peers and try things consequence-free. So again, please, if you take one thing from today, get your child to have it in some free play time. One thing I like to tell my athletes all the time is that failure is implied. And sometimes I'll just look at them dead in the eyes and go, you are going to fail, okay? You're going to. Guys, you're going to lose, you're going to mess up, you're going to fail. So let's just get that out of the way, because that's not what I care about. And I think if you want to help your kids, a lot of this is a lot of I statements. I'll use that a lot with my athletes. You are going to fail. I don't care. That is not important to me. Because again, I think we all know what we want our athletes to be getting out of this experience, but we really have to be particular with our words to make sure that it is reflected, that they have a full understanding that I will never get mad at you for a mistake. You will never be punished for making a mistake. I'll be disappointed if you're not trying your best. I'll be disappointed if you're being a bad teammate or you're being, you're showing poor sportsmanship. Those are things that are unacceptable. But it is acceptable to make mistakes. It's acceptable to fail over and over and over again. And that is never something that you're going to be punished for. Because that is how we develop a love of learning, because that is one of the key things that we want kids to take out of sports. When we look at trying to see how, sport participation and, can develop skills that go into other areas of life, love of learning. I can teach I can teach lessons about the importance of school through sport, because, what you'll find is kids don't want to try new things because they don't like being bad, right? Because they don't like failing. We really want to encourage kids to just embrace being bad. To be honest, it's really fun to be bad. We can actually flip that on its head for them. But again, the reason kids don't like to learn is they're not good at it yet. So they fail a lot. So oftentimes I'll talk to a kid, and you can use any sport you want, but let's say I want to take basketball, for example. And, you can go to a kid and say, okay, what if we wanted to improve? What if you had a competition with, you can pick out, let's say it's Steph Curry, and say, who could improve their field goal percentage over the course of 1 month? Who's going to win that competition? Kids usually get this wrong. Usually it's, first, it's a lot of times I don't know, or they'll think it's the professional. You use any example, it's Steph Curry. But we know it would be them, because Steph Curry's practiced his three-pointer millions of times. So to get even a little bit better takes hundreds of hours of practice. But when you're really bad at something, you just keep getting better and better and better every day. Every week, you can actually, if you were to keep track of it, you'd see yourself getting better. It's the best stage to be at is when you're first starting out, because you just see yourself getting better. And that's what the mastery over performance goals is all about. If I am comparing myself to Steph Curry, then yeah, I'm horrible at three-pointers, at my field goal shooting. But if I compare it to myself, well, I probably am getting better on a week-to-week basis. And it's drawing your players' attention to the progress they are making, as opposed to the goal that they want to reach. We can never master something. I'll say to athletes all the time, what does progress make? Or what does practice make? And you hear all the time, perfect. Practice makes progress. There is no such thing as perfect, right? So if mastery is the goal, well, mastery is impossible. Well, then I'm always striving towards an unachievable goal. So what am I really trying to do here? Right. And now I can set more realistic goals for myself, and I can help my child set more realistic goals. And if we're using a basketball example, well, let's say my athlete usually only makes 2 field goals a game, right? Well, that might start by taking more. Okay, well, maybe we're not making as many, and maybe that we're not that good at it. And so maybe we're not going to say, okay, we're going to try to make 5 because they might fail it. But we know, there was Kobe Bryant. He always was talking about shooting more. It doesn't matter if you miss. Well, maybe that's the goal. Hey, why don't you try to take 6 3-pointers today? Just starting with that goal to encourage them. Now you've succeeded. Good job. You took 6 today. Who cares if you made 0 out of 6? They were successful, and you're going to celebrate them because they took 6 3-pointers. They attempted them. Those are the types of goals we need to be setting. And that's how we teach them how to enjoy learning and actually not worry about the failure anymore and develop confidence. I just taught my kid to be confident in missing, because that wasn't the goal. That wasn't what we were trying to accomplish today. They're confident because they accomplished what they set out to. And that's really, really important, is to give them goals that they can accomplish. Praise being bad and framing the task. And that in the last 2, that's framing the task is really what we were doing there, right? Understanding that we're just trying to make some attempts. We're going to accept that we're going to fail. Again, we're going to say we're going to attempt 6 3-pointers. We're probably not going to make them, but that's not what we care about. I just want you to attempt that. And then we build on from that. Our competition settings, this is really just their game setting. How do they handle adversity? So this is, as a coach, where I sometimes get my most and my least enjoyment in my observations. It's very, very difficult for us to reconcile the fact that we like to say that we want our kids to learn how to be good teammates, be good sports, learn how to compete, and all these things, and not to worry about wins and losses. When during a 9-year-old sport competition, you can hear adults in the stands and the coaches on the benches screaming at a teenage ref about a call that they did not like. Right? We've all been in that situation where you have adults that are just berating a teenage referee because they did not, that was not a goal. What were you talking about? And when it comes to competition setting, it's all about modeling. It's all about what are we modeling for them. If I am freaking out because I don't like a particular call from a referee, what am I teaching my kid to do when things don't go well? I'm teaching them to respond emotionally. I'm teaching them to respond with anger. I'm teaching them to blame somebody else. When I could be taking this moment to say, guys, and this will happen all the time, you'll actually start to hear the kids get frustrated with the refs, which again, that's a learned behavior. Say, can we control what the ref does? Every kid will know this answer. No. Okay. What can we control what we do? Yes. Then let's focus on what we can do. Competition is just a setting for testing their ability to overcome failures and work in it as a team. That's it. Competition is the test. Are we doing a good job instilling confidence? Are we doing a good job instilling teamwork? Are we doing a good job instilling, how to overcome adversity? That is, as a coach and as a parent, that's what we should be monitoring during competition. It's really when we get to test not how good they are at their sport. That's what they get to find out. They're the ones who get, because this is their journey, it's their sport. They're the ones who get to see how, test their skills out against other competition. But as adults, we need to be focusing on using this as a test of the intangibles. How much confidence does my kid have? How safe do they feel in this environment? And what kind of lessons are they learning? This is really what we need to focus on. So looking at the roles as the parent and the coach in this youth sports journey. So what is a coach? It says it right at the top. Face it, you're a teacher. Okay. I think that there's a big departure from coaches as teachers. And they're more, they put their hats on as I'm a coach. But what are you really doing? You're helping a child learn about a game. You're a teacher. You're conveying information in a way that these kids are able to understand in a controlled environment. You're a teacher. Coaches have a massive role in this learning process. And the reason I'm talking about coaches is, even if there's none of you are parent coaches or ever have, looking for the right coach for your athlete is imperative if you ever want them to develop the confidence through their sport that they're supposed to. I think it's when you're trying to decide which team your kid's going to go to, I think it's really important that they have the right families involved, meaning they have teammates that they like, and you understand that the adults involved are the right parents. But seldom do we think about why a coach should be important. When we think about the team, it then becomes, how good is the team? Is this a good organization? Is this a strong team? And not whether, is this the coach that is going to best teach my kid, not just about the sport, but about, again, give them the confidence that they need to be successful in life and to make them a better person. I think there's a lot of coaches styles, and I think you're starting to see these coaching styles shift. But essentially, if I have a group of kids, I can motivate them by yelling and screaming at them, which I think you see a lot, right? A lot of barking and telling them what to do. Or I can teach them by making them laugh and smile. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer which one we should be emphasizing, but to this day, you still see an overemphasis of the drill sergeant styled coach. It's because it will take my least confident player and make them still work hard. Now, it doesn't mean they're getting better. That doesn't mean they're becoming more confident. And in fact, it probably means that they're really being damaged by the process. But to the other adults, to the parents, it looks like the team is doing better. It looks like that's how I'm getting results. But meanwhile, my child is, these athletes are just terrified to make a mistake, and they're terrified to not work hard because there's going to be negative consequences outside of letting my team down, or, not winning, or, not being rewarded. I'm doing this because I don't want anyone to be mad at me. I don't want my coaches, I don't want the adults to be mad at me and start yelling at me. And that is what leads to burnout. That is what leads to lack of confidence. That is what leads to them being bad teammates to one another. So coaching and style is very, very important to developing the right, allowing your kid to develop the confidence. And it's really, the coach has a Herculean task of balancing the needs of players, parents, and the organizations. The organization wants to make a certain amount of income and has a product level that they have, meaning a certain level of skill. Parents expect things to look a certain way and for their kids to be playing at a certain level. And then you have players that probably just want to be having fun and, enjoying themselves out on the ice. And you have to balance that. And you see a lot of coaches sacrifice the needs of the players in favor of the needs of the parents in the organization, meaning we're going to reduce the amount of fun we're having. I'm going to give you less freedom. I'm going to make sure that you're working hard, even if you're not having any fun at all, because I need to make sure that the parents are happy with me and that I still have a job at the end of the year. And it is something that, again, you're starting to see change. But right now, that balancing these needs is at the expense of the players' needs, and specifically not allowing players to develop their confidence because people need things to look a certain way. But again, covered this, right? I think this is the picture we like to think about when we see youth sports. But if I was to find a better picture, it's the eyebrows would be turned down, their mouth would be wide open as they're yelling, and kids would all be looking down, because that's what you see day in and day out in youth sports, is coaches barking at their players and players looking ashamed. And again, I cannot tell you the amount of times I have players returning from a shift, and it was a good shift, but they picked up on something that they didn't like in the shift in their own play, and they are devastated about it, and they think that they did a bad job. And I have to sit there telling them how great they're doing. There's a lot of damage being done at the youth sport level. Again, which is why I'll try to wrap this up quickly so we can get to some questions. Again, focus on the learning environment, which we went over. Teaching to the individual. This is probably the only part of this slide that I'm going to focus on. Coaches teaching to a group is a lot of the problem. And I think a resurgence of an emphasis on the individual and what the individual's needs are, whether it's a learning style and any learning difficulties or other problems they might be having. We have to start teaching to the individual, because that, if I want an individual kid to be confident, what that child needs to be confident is not the same as any of their teammates. And it's up to the coach to figure out what each player is going to need. It's even to the extent that you see kids get pushed out of their sport because, oh, well, this kid acts up, or this, has emotional, or they're getting really angry. When a lot of times kids just have their own problems, and there's probably something going on at home. And to me, that is part of the youth sport experience. I want to teach these kids that their teammate who is getting really upset, you know what, we have to support him. I'm not gonna blame him. Well, that's what we're gonna lose now, or he's making everybody else upset. Well, what if I taught the other kids on the bench to go over and try to cheer that child up? What if I made sure that that child felt included in the group, that even if they're crying right now, that it's okay that they're crying, and that as soon as they're ready, their teammates are going to be happy to have them back, and they're going to want them back in. Instead, we push these players out. We label them as emotional, or they're a problem, and we kick them out. We kick them out of their sport or off their team. And I think that is something that I would really like to see a change at the youth sport level. A very quick aside, I had an athlete that was exactly like this. And we found out several months later, we're having all these emotional breakdowns and he's acting up. And we handled him patiently, and he was having a lot of success. Until eventually he tells me one day, he is the product of divorced parents. And he came up to me one day and he said, "Coach, can I tell you something?" He's 12 years old. "Coach, can I tell you something?" I'm like, "Sure." And he looks at me and he goes, I'm just really sad. He said, Grandpa's sick and mom's crying every day. And it's really, really hard for me. And if you almost have a tear in your eye, I do too, because it was really hard to hear that. And I did. And I guess I cried later, because we had been really hard on him early in the year. And I really encouraged me and my co-coach to back off, because it just didn't seem right. And sure enough, he's emotionally supporting his mother at 12 years old every day. And we don't know that that's going on. I mean, and it's not that he's a bad kid. It's that he doesn't have any regulation left in his sport. And he's constantly being yelled at school and maybe in his other sports by his coaches and teachers for his behavior, when meanwhile, he just has too much on his plate. So again, if we're trying to teach confidence, it's confidence in these other life lessons. We have to understand that there's kids, and it's far more complicated than just rah support my kid and have these high expectations for them and have them hold themselves to these very high expectations. A lot of times we have to grapple with these other issues that might be going on in their life. It's really important. Car rides, to me, just very quick. This is very quick. Don't talk about your sports in the car ride with your kid. If you're going to the game, have them come up with a playlist that they get to come up with. They get to come up with their own music playlist, and that's all you listen to on the way to their game or their practice. And on the way back, if they want to talk about their sport and what just happened, they can. Otherwise, just like the rule we give to adults, we give to the adults during sports, it's a 24-hour rule. If there's something you really want to address with your kid following a competition, please wait till the next day. Let them cool down from their sport. If it's something really positive, sure. But again, make sure that they want to talk about it. If they're moved on from their sport, let them move on. It's okay. Maybe they had the best game of their life. 30 minutes later, they're talking about, a video game they want to go play. Good. That's great. They're allowed to. We don't have to talk about how proud we are of them. We should, but it's also not about what we want to tell them. It's about what they want. This is their journey. Please, this is their journey. And the more you let them know and you reinforce that it's about them and their participation and it's their team and it's their sport, the more confident that they're going to be and the more enjoyment that they're going to get out of their sport. Modeling, I touched on earlier, but again, this is the #1 way kids learn. If you want your kid to behave a certain way, if you want your kid to be confident, show them what confidence is, show them what confidence looks like, show them how you want them to respond to certain situations, and be very careful about your response during competitions the way you're looking at them. Are our arms crossed? Are we scowling? Are we pointing? Are we doing this? Or is it good job, thumbs up? Something bad goes on. I do it all the time with my kids and they're freaking out. Then we let up a goal and it's, hey, no problem, guys. Hey, we can get it back. It's simple. And I know it almost seems obvious, but we're really not doing these things. So again, please just model the behavior you want to see. Model the type of athlete that you want them to be. And this is the last one, some future considerations for youth sports, which is what I would like to see. Free play, obviously, I'm just going to continue to drive that home. The importance of mistakes, let them know, not only are mistakes okay, you are going to make them. All right, let's just get over that from now. You're going to make mistakes and it's okay. Returning to multi-sport participation, play other sports, take a break from your sport. I coach ice hockey, and just the other day I was talking to a parent who said, in full sincerity, yeah, but I know the way hockey is, you take a break and you fall behind. And my head was about to explode because it's like, no, please take breaks. Your kid's going to like their sport more. They're going to be far better at their sport. They're going to be less likely to be injured, to have burnout, to be more confident. Please play other sports, take breaks from your sports. They're not going to fall behind. Every major professional athlete, or I should say 90+% of every professional athlete was exceptional at another sport as well. And that's you have to play other sports if you want to be a good athlete. Rethinking instruction, again, creating the right environment where they get to make some decisions in the process. It's not about instructing and drilling. It's about giving them a conducive learning environment in which they have a say and they get to interact with the space. That's how they develop that type of confidence. Redefining what we see as coaching and what our coach is. And then again, like what you guys can do. And we've gone over a lot of things, but it's just modeling the proper behavior, helping them set goals that are manageable, teach them how to set goals, and always reinforcing what we want to reinforce. If you want your child to be more confident, that's all you should ever be talking about when it comes to sport. What happened in the game or the practice never matters. It's about, how did you handle your adversity? Did you try new things? Did you allow yourself to fail? Did you put yourself in a situation in which you may fail, but you did it anyways? That's what we want to reinforce, and that's what we need to be celebrating. Again, this is a very broad topic, and to talk about what is confidence and how to instill it is so personal to your child that's why it really is a broader discussion about how, youth sports. I'm going to open it up to questions now, but please, this is where you can contact me, and I really encourage everybody to do so. It's really complicated. There is no instructions for parents on how to do this the right way, and if I can be of any kind of resource to anybody, I would love to do so. So for now, I'll just be quiet and I'll let anybody speak up who wants to.